Welcome to the Lights On podcast, featuring stories behind building and running successful hotel businesses. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Lights On podcast. I'm Kin Siu, CEO of Lights On and your host today, joined by my co-host Emmanuel Mora, Director of Growth at Lights On. On this podcast, we share stories across hospitality about building and growing hotel businesses. This episode is brought to you by Lights On. Lights On is the revenue and marketing partner for independent hotels. We work with over 40 hotels across the US, helping them find money hiding in their guest journey. Rates that don't move with demand, OTA outranking your own website, past guests that you never hear from again. We find problems like that and fix them for you. Learn more at lightson.co. Before introducing today's guest, I want to give a big shout out to Jacob Messina, CEO of Stay in Touch and a past guest of our podcast. Thanks to him, making this show happen today with Nick Slavin, CEO and co-founder of Curacity, a hospitality technology company that turns media visibility into measurable hotel bookings and revenue. Before Curacity, Nick was on the portfolio management team at Starwood Capital Group, where he managed hotel investments in a $4.2 billion opportunity fund. He co-founded Curacity in 2015, and the platform has since driven over $2 billion in attributed rooms sold for hotel partners, including preferred hotels and resorts and the leading hotels of the world. Super excited to have you joining us today, Nick.
Yeah, excited to be here.
All right. Before we talk shop, I always like to going back to how everyone started their journey there. So you were back at 2015 or so, spent a few years in Starwood managing the fund, managing hotel investments and all that. What made you decide to build a technology company from the ground up?
Couple of things. So first, going back even further than Starwood Capital Group, I had always wanted to, ever since I was 8 years old, I wanted to open hotels. That was my life's mission. I wanted to open really wonderful hotels in hard to reach places. I was really lucky growing up. I got to travel all over the world with my family. And I loved staying in hotels that really had a sense of place. And so I thought it'd be really fun to build one. Kind of a hard thing to do. So before jumping into build a hotel, I went into investment banking for a little while, and then I went into private equity. So as you mentioned, I was at Starwood Capital Group for about almost 4 years. And towards the end of my time there, I was a portfolio manager on a fund called Sophie 8, which was an opportunity fund. It was a $4.2 billion fund dedicated to acquiring all different types of real estate assets. So distressed debt, resi, land, commercial, multifamily, and hotels. And one of the coolest hotels that I got to work on was the Baccarat Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. That was part of the portfolio that I managed. And this is a world-class hotel. Baccarat Hotel, one of the first kind of hotel assets from the family that owns Baccarat Crystal. They'd been serving Baccarat Crystal on every French state dinner table since the 1800s. Like a brand with incredible history and a really wonderful narrative that we knew we wanted to market in order to drive kind of accretive returns from the prospective guests we were targeting. And it was kind of the first time that I had my first foray into the world of opening up a hotel and what it looked like from the asset management side to invest in, various marketing and distribution strategies to drive new guests to stay at a brand new, beautiful spot. And I immediately saw how challenging it was to invest at scale in marketing. As asset managers, we knew that investing in really wonderful narrative building, brand building, marketing strategies we knew that would reach the right person, but there were really no technologies at the time that gave us conviction that there would actually be measurable ROI from any sort of top of funnel marketing activity. And so instead of investing as much as we had maybe wanted to in top of funnel marketing, we were forced kind of down funnel to work with distribution players like the booking.coms and the Expedias of the world, which for an incredible 5-star asset like the Baccarat, which I don't know, I think 12, 13 years ago is probably pricing at $1,000 a night. No, the Expedias of the world are not super brand accretive for an asset like
Yeah,
that.
it's a tough pill to swallow.
It's tough pill to swallow. And they also do everything in their power to keep the consumer on their platform, which means they obfuscate customer data at every turn. And for a hotel like the Baccarat, where they've got incredible food and beverage offerings, they have an amazing spa, half of the revenue they drive from a guest is going to come from on-premise spend. And if you don't have the relevant customer information at the time of booking, it's really hard to upsell those on-prem categories. And so it's just really doesn't make sense for a brand like Baccarat. And so that was kind of the first time I said, it'd be really wonderful if we could, give hoteliers the conviction they needed to invest in really wonderful top of funnel marketing at scale. So that was kind of one of the sparks that drove the inception of Curacity.
Has that been your favorite hotel so far, or over your time in the game, you find a different favorite hotel?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. We we work with almost 1,000 hotels globally, and they're all really wonderful.
Good answer.
Great
I still
answer.
have this image now of 8-year-old Nick just dreaming of building his hotel and now reaching that point that he's working with the Baccarat. So that's awesome. I love that story.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
How did you transition? So honestly, I'm really curious about that moment, almost like the leap of faith that led to you kind of discovering and accepting this idea of, that fit for Curacity and what eventually it would become. And how did you eventually make that decision to be like, you know what, we're just going to go for it and we're going to take a chance and make this company?
Yeah, it's a great question. And when you ask a lot of founders this question, they'll point towards kind of a structural shift in the underlying ecosystem or a systemic change that's occurring that made it such that the moment they jumped, into their company was the right moment because something seismic was occurring. That wasn't really the case for me. I mean, I had long thought my Baccarat experience kind of started to make me think that the worlds of marketing and revenue management and distribution and PR, they're all kind of driving towards the same thing, which was how do you drive the best guest, right? The guest who's going to be excited by the really wonderful brand you've built, the guest who is going to take that excitement and translate that into spending up in room category, spending up by increasing their length of stay, and spending up by eating at the restaurant on property, drinking a beer at the bar on property, and getting a massage at the spa on property rather than leaving because they've been brought in by, a really wonderful story. And that's kind of a long-winded way of saying, like, I kind of saw that the customer journey from pre-intent to booking to stay to on-premise spend to rebooking, it should collapse into one. So instead of seeing this seismic kind of macro shift, I kind of internalized the need for just a shift in the way that hotels opened and operated. And so I said, kind of seems really interesting to work on. So one day I just said, look, fortune favors the bold. I don't think there's any seismic shift that's going to force my hand, so I'm just going to force it for myself.
I see. So the early days of Curacity, as you are kind of building the the prototype, finding that exact product market fit, right? I think so that the product of Curacity back then, obviously very different from what you guys have today. So back then you were leaning very heavily into the newsletter side of things. So how did you make that decision? And at what point did you get enough data to really solve I think the whole you mentioned scalability. I think it all comes down to how you can systematically measure the return. So how long did that take you to get to a point that you're onto something and you can prove to other investors and your customers?
It's pretty immediate. It only took about 8 years.
Not too shabby.
So no, so all jokes aside, startups are a tricky business, and I wish I knew then what I know now. But kind of the thesis that underpinned the creation of Curacity back then is the same thesis that underpins what Curacity is today. We're distribution infrastructure for all of travel right now, helping to drive incremental demand in branded creative ways for the world's best travel brands. That's what we were back then. That's what we are today. But we look nothing like what we did back in 2015. And we've taken a number of pretty right-angled turns since. So, if you bear with me for a sec, like taking it way back to 2015, the original model was actually, we always knew that we wanted to connect these pre-intent surfaces with the actual booking. That was going to be the way that you turned marketing into a revenue driving distribution channel with really clear ROI measurement. So you've got the kind of pre-intent surfaces like digital media brands, and then you've got the travel customers. Those form the two sides of our network. While today we are kind of travel customer first, we think of monetizing on behalf of the travel customer, like the hotel. Back then, we actually thought of it from the opposite perspective. So we thought about it from the perspective of the media brand first. So like, how can we help these media brands that have built unbelievably authoritative brand names and recognition, huge distribution, and access to millions and millions of audience members that really trust the content that they're pumping out? How do we give them the ability to actually monetize the influence that they have within travel specifically on their audiences? So we said, let's build custom OTAs in conjunction with these digital media brands. So you think Wall Street Journal, they've got 3 million subscribers. They talk about really wonderful hotels. When one of their audience members goes to look at, the Four Seasons that they should stay at after they've gotten their Wall Street bonus, why not keep them in a Wall Street Journal experience and essentially have them book the Four Seasons directly on wallstreetjournal.com/travel? And so Wall Street Journal is capturing the inspiration in the intent they created and monetizing it on their behalf. And then it's wonderful from the hotel's perspective because the hotel gets to stay in this, or to keep their consumer in this nice branded journey, right? Wall Street Journal to Wall Street Journal travel direct to the hotel. So we did that. We partnered with Surface Magazine to start, which is a kind of a world-class design magazine, and we launched surfacehotels.com, which is the first iteration of this kind of custom boutique niche online travel agency in partnership with a media brand. And so Surface created content, really wonderful editorial content on about 600 of the world's best design-focused hotels. They distributed that content to their audiences, and we tried to get their audience members to book those hotels that were featured on surfacehotels.com. And then we're going to do the same with New York Times, the same with Wall Street Journal, the same with Food and Wine, the same with Rolling Stone magazine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we really quickly found out is that that business model does not work. The reason that it didn't work is that travel is a high consideration purchase. If you're going to go spend a lot of money on a really wonderful hotel stay, there's a lot of consideration that goes into a purchase like that. It's not like a gray t-shirt where you see an advertisement for a gray t-shirt on Instagram. You say, I'm a size XL, I like the color gray, and $20 is reasonable. Low consideration. You can swipe up and push buy right there. That's not the case with the travel ecosystem. It's high consideration. You have to figure out whether you can take time off work. You have to consider the purchase price of this rather large transaction. You have to see if your significant other can join you. You have to see if the flights line up, right? There are a lot of decisions that need to be made before you can purchase that 3, 4, 5 night hotel stay in some far-flung destination. And so the time between pre-intent and inspiration and then booking can be really lengthy. It can take a week. It could take 2 weeks. It could take, in the case of a honeymoon, it could take 6 months. And the key is in connecting the right data sets that enable you to track that customer from pre-intent to booking across multiple potential distribution platforms, because that consumer could pick up the phone and call a travel agent. They could book it through Expedia. They could pick up the phone and call the hotel directly. They could go to hoteldirectweb.com, and across a large chunk of time, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months plus. And so very quickly, we pivoted the business model from these kind of boutique, OTAs in partnership with media brands to data infrastructure that supported an attribution that allowed us to track pre-intent across multiple surfaces and across multiple months to actual booking.
How did you? Oh, Iman, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love the focus that you folks have on attribution and data, just because, especially, as you've seen in the hotel industry and with traditional PR and communications, while it's important to kind of put your name out there through these traditional channels, it's so difficult to really know the impact of those efforts. And so I love what you folks are doing with Curacity to really show like, hey, not only, are we still producing this content, getting your name out there, but we're showing the user journey across the entire funnel really, and just kind of showing how they're going through and actually going into booking, from consuming the content and, being exposed there all the way through the journey. So it's pretty cool. You folks are building that out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, and you look at the way that, you look at the tools that hotels have to invest in marketing, and it's limited. Everyone knows that marketing, 50% of their marketing works. They just don't know which 50%. And so we're here to kind of illuminate which 50% is actually driving value.
Yeah. And that part is very counterintuitive for lots of the hotel operators. Most of the hotel operators, are not coming from a tech background. They don't understand the importance of the data structure and attribution. I think it was a very novel model back then that you built. How did you pitch that to hotel? Because over time you kind of shift that your monetization opportunities from the media side of things now are back to your travel customer base, and convincing these hotel operators to understand that importance of attribution, right? Did you find a hard time kind of targeting message to help them understand the value?
Yeah. It's taken a really long time to convince a significant percentage of the industry to, understand the importance of top of funnel media on their bottom line. I think that, you made this point earlier that, or you just suggested that a lot of hoteliers, they're not technologists, and that's absolutely true. I think they all agree on the importance of attribution. I just don't think they, um, historically, there just haven't been attribution methodologies that have been easily explainable to hotel owners. You're also talking about shifting some, a fundamental understanding of what marketing and distribution actually is. Like from my view and the view of Curacity, marketing and distribution and revenue management are really one and the same thing. They're all driving at the same thing, and they shouldn't be so siloed in their approach to data. So you're kind of dealing with this fundamental, shift in the way hotels operate. You're also dealing with a bit of a, fundamental shift in the understanding of, what parts of the marketing funnel are really helpful. So like we did this research with Skift. I think it was like 10 months ago. And we found that 39% of hotel executives say digital ads are among their most effective booking drivers. And then you ask the same question of, travelers. You're like, how effective are digital ads in driving, bookings? And only 18% of them said that an ad has ever led to a booking. So you got 39% of hotel owners saying most effective channel, and yet only 18% of consumers saying, yeah, this works. That's a 2x. That's more than a 2x delta right there. So something's kind of fundamentally broken. And then on the other hand, you ask the same base of consumers whether they use established media outlets to drive recommendations, and ultimately whether those media outlets and those recommendations drove a real booking. 81% said yes. So there's just been this like systematic under-reliance and under-investment in top-of-funnel marketing forever in our space. And, to tie this back to your question directly, that's been a hard education process for this industry. But, we're 11 years in and continuing to work on that.
Yeah. And I think Emmanuel can touch a lot kind of from our daily operations for our hotel partners, right? It has been a constant fight too, right? When we can show a really good return on ad spend, when we allocate most of the budgets on, the bottom of the funnel marketing, great. Now, how can we actually now shift that budget to the top of funnel at the risk of now immediately on paper, you can really see that ROI because, traditionally just not that many ways to help attribute those effort to the ultimate bookings, right? So it's and I think the future is here just not evenly distributed, right? So they're part of the world where they know about the Curacity model. They understand now there's a way to do so versus I think a majority part of the industry, they still don't know such thing even exists. So I think there's still a big opportunity just for all of us helping our hotel partners to be successful on that side.
Yep.
Yeah, thinking through Curiosity's 11-year journey so far, you've already had, these game-changing moments in the sense of like upper funnel attribution and really being able to deliver that at scale. And at the time, that was, sort of unheard of. So thinking into the next 10 years, where do you kind of see Curiosity evolving? Are you just going to be pushing further into that space? Is there any things you're exploring there? What does that look like?
Yeah. As you guys are more aware of than probably anyone else, there is a seismic shift. Here's the seismic shift that I was talking about, not existing 10 years ago, but here it is now. It's AI search and AI search based distribution, right? So the way I think about it is you've kind of got a bifurcation of inspirational, surface areas. So you've got a lot of pre-intent surface area that's not going to go away, still going to be very, very relevant, like email, like social media, like reviews, like connected TV. Those are all like organic web. Those are all still going to be very, very important surface areas to drive inspiration to the consumer. But you are seeing AI search completely displace traditional search. That's where the future is heading. AI search will become the predominant method by which the majority of consumers discover, search for, and perhaps end up booking their hotel rooms. And so, from Curacity's perspective, we are now full force in helping our hotels transition into this brave new world, which is really exciting. And I think it's the first time, probably in 20 years, where hotels have had a moment like this where they can begin, if they're doing their jobs properly, they can begin to take back market share from the online travel agencies.
And before we touch on the AI search, I think there's another angle about AI I'm super curious about. And the whole idea of AI slop, just all this crazy content out there. I think at this point, most white label, white collar workers, they're all using some level of AI to help all their daily jobs, writing, so on and so forth. So you actually made an interesting acquisition last year, buying a Hotel Life. I think it's like a smaller boutique media company, right? To kind of like fight that kind of AI slop, right? So and it's been a while. How did that acquisition go? And did that premise of producing high quality human editorial content, like does that move the needle of how everything else that Curacity has been working on?
Yeah. So it's kind of a really wonderful story. A Hotel Life was one of our very first media brand partners. They were actually the second media brand partner that we'd ever worked with. So I think they came on to the Curacity platform in like 2016, 2017. And Hotel Life was kind of the brainchild of Ben Punthole, who's a really wonderful, world-renowned hotelier. He actually just led the opening of the new Delano down in Miami. And Hotel Life was, this incredible kind of, I would say, influencer-led platform long before the term social media influencer was ever invented. It was just Ben and all of his very, very cool, interesting, globally eclectic friends that love to stay in really wonderful hotels. They would write up their hotel stay experiences and publish them on a Hotel Life. And so a Hotel Life became this really kind of incredible creative platform for all of his friends. And then obviously it took on a life of its own and expanded beyond just Ben's group of friends. And at a certain point, I think Ben and I began chatting, and he was interested in kind of like pursuing the next thing. And I had always been a huge fan of the platform, and timing just worked. And we've been thrilled with the acquisition ever since. It was the thesis behind that acquisition originally, to your point, was a defense against AI slop. My thesis has always been that really wonderful, robust, thoughtful content is going to win the game, because the consumer is not an idiot. The consumer is smart. They can read through, the bullshit that underpins so much of AI slop these days. There is still a really human, wonderfully human component to travel and to hotels and to the writing that corresponds to those hotel stays. And you can feel it with a brand like a Hotel Life. And not only that, so can the LLMs. Like third-party, authoritative, and I'll underline that word, authoritative sources are critical to driving AI visibility in this new era. it's really hard to fool the LLMs. You can pump out a bunch of crappy content. Just because you do doesn't necessarily mean that the LLM is going to pick that up in order to inform one of the synthesized answers it creates. So like, I think media brands are coming back with a vengeance. I know that stock prices have taken a massive hit as, media brands start seeing incredible, reductions in organic clicks, but the importance that they hold within this ecosystem, our traveler ecosystem, and in the AI visibility ecosystem is accelerating.
Yeah. And just a side example, just in my world of marketing agency, I was just recently talking to a content writing studio, right? It was right around that time last year when they lost half of their business on content writing, because when everybody thinks, oh, I can now use AI to write stuff, why would I need some professionals to do that? So they lost half of their business, and just getting back to this year, now they just regaining all their business back and then more. Because now, to your point, consumer is not idiot. Now I think people are craving for high quality content more than ever, which actually position Curacity really well with all the media, high quality media partnerships and network that you guys build. That the authoritative part of it associated with AI visibility. I think this is the a big thing that we would love to hear more about, especially the new product that you guys launched, the VISTA. Can you tell us more about how that is gonna help hoteliers kind of fight and take the chance, like once in a decade opportunities to now being able to fight back from OTAs who you know gatekeep lots of the business?
Yeah. So let me take it one step back before jumping right into Vista AI, which is my favorite topic these days. So you think about, let's think about kind of traditional search, Google search. It's ranked search. So even if you've got really crappy SEO, you're gonna show up somewhere. Maybe you don't show up on the first page, right? Maybe you're not one of the top 10 blue links, but you'll show up on the second page or the third page or the sixth page, right? You'll show up. AI search is fundamentally different. It's binary. It's not ranked. When you ask Claude for the top places to stay in Brooklyn, Claude's going to pull the top 5 places that it wants to recommend for you. If you're not in that top 5 offering, you don't exist. It's binary. You either exist or you don't, unlike in traditional search like Google. So AI visibility is a fundamentally different game. I was looking at some data from a company called RevPAR Genius recently, and they said 94% of hotels are effectively invisible to AI search. And again, it's because it's binary. You either show up or you don't. You exist or you don't. It's not like you're just on Google's 6th page. Binary outcomes here. Stakes are a lot higher. You can't screw up. Why are people, why is this such a challenging environment? Or why is it that 94% of hotels don't show up? 77% of hotel sites lack structured data. That's crazy. Only 25% of the synthesized AI answers actually pull from hotel websites. That makes sense because 77% of sites lack structured data. Here's the exciting part, though. 71% of AI recommendations, again, this is not my data, this is RevPAR Genius's data. I wish it were mine. This is great. 71% of AI recommendations are pulled from articles and reviews. Again, these third-party authoritative sites, they are critical towards ensuring that you, the hotel, appear when a user says, give me the best places based on what you know of me to stay in X destination. So that's kind of what Curacity Vista AI is doing. So we launched Vista AI. We've been working on it for the last year or so. We launched it just about 2 months ago. And VISTA AI it's a measurement, analytics, and distribution platform for all of travel. So essentially, when you're a hotel and you get onboarded, you get access to our dashboard. That dashboard provides you with measurement, tracking, insights, analytics, and recommendations, and then the distribution. So measurement. If you're a hotel, you want to understand whether or not you're ranking across all of the various AI search platforms. When a user says, what are the top 10 places to stay in New York? And you're the Baccarat, you want to ensure that you're in that top 10 recommendation. And the various LLMs pull from different sources. So just because you routinely appear in Claude doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to routinely appear in chat, and it might not necessarily mean that you appear in Perplexity either. So we give you some measurement analytics there. Then if you're the hotel, you can go really deep on specific queries. So let's say, let's keep with the Baccarat example. Let's say you want to be known for having a world-class bar. You can look at that specific query and see how relevant you are in the search results or in the ranked search results across various LLMs. Then let's say you're not ranking too high. You can go and do a deep dive to understand all of the many, many hundreds of citations that have led to your current ranking. And you can go and do that for your competitors as well. So you can see why they're ranking higher than you are on an LLM by LLM basis for any query that you're interested in. So that's kind of measurement. Then we'll allow you to track, so we can help you see how your relevance tracks over time. Typically, we do it on a weekly basis. We can do that against your competitive set. Then we provide you some insights. This hotel located a couple blocks down the street has a really great bar, and it's ranking really highly on chat because the sentiment analysis has spit out these 16 words as driving enhanced relevance. So we kind of make those insights available. And then you're like, okay, this is really helpful. It's really helpful to have, to be able to measure. It's really helpful to be able to track those measurements over time. These insights are really helpful, but what do I do? And that's the key differentiator for VISTA AI. We get to leverage the decade plus of digital media brand relationships we have to work with our publications to get web-based content that's structured properly. When I say structured properly, I mean that's readable by the LLMs. We work with all of our publications to get wonderful editorial content created and distributed on the web in places that the LLMs read. And now we can show how that type of distribution helps to increase your relevance for a specific query, or more broadly speaking, over time. So same thing we've done, for 10 years with email, where, we essentially turn media into a distribution channel. Now we're turning a different type of media, different media surface area, web, into AI visibility and distribution.
Yeah. And arguably that is a more effective way to boost AI visibility, like having a hotel, they can do, lots of what we do is helping hotels to structure, revamp their website for AI visibility. But, we can do that all day long versus an article from Travel and Leisure, for example, doing the same thing, just that authoritative ranking. Well, I guess, I should use relevance, is always going to be putting more weight than a hotel website could do by themselves. But obviously, the whole AI visibility is all about now, it's not just a singular signal. It's just about no one silver bullet, but many lead bullets around. You got to make sure we have all the, the high quality editorial content mentioning the hotel. The hotel website itself has to be buttoned up. All the reviews, even nowadays, all the social medias, they're all becoming input for the LLM models and, search and all that. So, actually writing the right ways for all of your social media, Instagram posts, that is critical. Are people mentioning you on Reddit? That's the big signal. People asking questions on Quora. So you just, getting to a point where now Authority's got to understand now everything that the internet has memory about your brand matters in this era. And, to your point, the stakes is much higher because now everything is so polarized. You either showed up or not.
Yeah, I think about it, you said there's no silver bullet, spot on. I think about it as, like how many arrows do you have in your quiver? And you need 10 of them, and all of them need to be sharp.
That's crazy. So so you just launched that 2 months ago. And I think it's kind of last question for you to wrap us up here. The evolution and the changes and improvement on AI is just like exponential, right? Everything we talk about probably like 2 months ago, it may not be relevant in the next 3 months. So if you were to predict what's the next big changes, right, in the AI era, from a hotelier perspective, are you watching any trends or just anything that you're thinking beyond launching VISTA, thinking about a new product, thinking about things that are not yet captured by anyone?
Yeah. Couple things that we're thinking through and actively working on as an organization. So we really specialize in maximizing revenue from pre-intent surface areas. So like we started in email, we've expanded to web. We're going to begin moving into every surface that houses pre-intent potential. So think reviews, think social media platforms, think connected TV, for example. Anywhere where we can find a consumer and help them monetize their pre-intent and turn that into intent and then booking, we will be there. And we've got this kind of Curacity intelligence layer that is beginning to map all of those signals, those data signals that we collect across all of the various surfaces. We're beginning to map that into what we've called the Curacity Traveler ID. That enables us to build super interesting commercial data products that we can make available to our hotels so that when they get that booking, they know that guest and they can more effectively upsell to them and they can more effectively drive repeat bookings and guest satisfaction, so on and so forth. That's what we're working on. Something that I am particularly focused on and excited by is kind of like war between, you look at how the LLMs are kind of expanding their commercial models. You've got chat moving into ads. You've got seems like Claude sticking with connectors and apps. I'll be really curious to see what commercial model wins out, the app connector model or the ad model. But regardless, there is a ton of new potential for our hotels to maximize distribution via those kind of newfound marketing channels that'll have super robust kind of measurement monetization analytics such that they will become the new distribution channel that hotels will want to spend a lot of time optimizing, and then we'll be all over.
Yeah. Again, it's a once in a decade or multi-decade opportunities for the independents to now come on top before. And I think the opportunity window is short, right? Because before long, the big boys they always find their ways to monopolize the market. So I think you just people have to know about the importance and really act on it now before that slips away.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, for the hotels that do act, there are first mover advantages, like really strong first mover advantages. You get the kind of really wonderful authoritative third-party citations created now. Those train models that train the next model that trains the next model. So this stuff builds on itself. And the sooner our hotels move, the more beneficial of a position they'll be in.
Awesome, Nick. Where can people find more about you and Curacity?
I don't think anyone wants to know about me, but Curacity, you can just go to www.curacity.com. We just launched some really cool research in partnership with Professor Chris Anderson at Cornell's Center for Hospitality Research. That's right on our website. It's really interesting, and it kind of looks at how different consumers, different types of consumers, stratify and utilize AI search differently. So there's really not a one size fits all approach towards finding those consumers via AI search. That sits right on our website. So curacity.com, check it out.
Awesome. Nick, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Ken, Emmanuel. It's really great to see both of you.
Yeah, it's great chatting with you, Nick.
Okay,
Likewise.
signing out.
Thanks for listening to the Lights On podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.